is on a coordinate graph. Make sure it's on your table of contents. Before I actually begin filling in the notes, I'll tell you the little urban legend behind how this system came up. It's called coordinate graph or coordinate grid or Cartesian graph or Cartesian grid, named after this guy, Rene Descartes. So the urban legend is that he was sick in bed, like really sick, like, you know, when you got such a fever that you're kind of like, what? Okay, so there was a fly, and it was buzzing around on his ceiling. Again, don't know how true it is, urban legend. And he was like, oh, wow. I got all these ceiling tiles that are like perfect squares. So I could let someone know exactly where that fly is, but telling them how far over it is from that wall and how far over it is from that wall. And that's how they came up with the Cartesian coordinates. Okay, so anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So to find your x, y, make sure when you are writing a coordinate pair, you put it in parentheses with a comma between it. So to find your x, y coordinates, you can start at 0, 0, which is also known as the origin. And then the first coordinate tells you to go left or right. The second coordinate tells you to go up or down. So you run before you jump. That's a little memory trick people use. Or you walk to the elevator before you go up or down. Crawl before you
That's what I learned.
walk. You're still going left or right. Anyway. So, but you heard me. I sit there and go, I go over and then up. I go over and then down. I go over and then, so that's how I just always think over and then up or down. So on this graph, go ahead and plot point A at 2, 8, and plot point B at 2, -8, and figure out what the distance would be if there's a line segment from A to B. You can draw the line segment if you'd like.
What units should we label it with?
Well, you should label point A as an A, and you should label
No,
point
like
B
that.
as B. And then
Like
you
the
call it just
difference.
units, how many units it is between the two of them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So plot point A at over 2, up 8, telling you every single time. I gotta say it. Plot point B at over 2, down 8. Make sure you label it A and B. And if you have a line segment connecting the two, and I don't know how well my smartboard's matching up. Hey, not too bad. What's the distance? So who can tell me what the distance is between point A and point B, of that line segment that connects the two? Yes, ma'am. 16 units. And it's called units, not inches or centimeters. You don't know necessarily how big the grid is. So it's 16 units. And so if your x coordinates are the same, you're just finding the difference between the y coordinates. And over here on your journal, the labeling of the x and y, it shows like a gap there. You have to still count those spaces, so make sure you're not thrown off by when it doesn't actually show the cross lines. Although your paper, oh, it does show the cross lines. My old one doesn't. I got old school here. Anywho, often in data analysis, in Unit 1 we were doing line graphs. It was positive x and positive y. We were saying after such and such amount of hours, you traveled such and such amount. If you sold such an amount of t-shirts, you would get such and such amount of money. But in real life, there could be situations where you have negative as well. Like the business, if they only had 2 customers, they would have a negative profit. So often in data analysis, we only plot points using, what words, ordered pairs. With a positive x coordinate and a positive y coordinate. And I apologize for the notes being smaller than usual because I wanted to fit the whole visual on there at the same time. So ordered pairs with a positive x coordinate and a positive y coordinate, and that ends up being in what's called quadrant 1, over here in the top right corner. Sometimes you only have a quadrant 1. You don't even show the whole crisscross of your x-axis and your y-axis, your horizontal number line and your vertical number line.
Since we read left to right, how come this is the first one?
Because that's where a lot of times people only need that one.
Oh.
So, to identify the other quadrants, you increase your Roman numerals as you go counterclockwise. quadrant 1, that's the first quadrant. A lot of times you only need to set up your grid. If you're using graph paper, a lot of times you only need to focus on quadrant 1. But if you do end up having some negatives involved, you might need to go to quadrant 2 over here, or quadrant 3 down here, or quadrant 4 over here. So now we might start seeing more with the negative numbers.
Okay. Then why? How come like?
I don't know why they decided counterclockwise. I don't know. But so just make sure that you know that that's the way it's set up. So just remember, if your x-coordinate is negative, because you don't always have your x-axis numbered completely. You might have just every 5 or every 10. So you will go to the left. You need to make sure you're going the right direction, the right amount of spaces, or units, as they'll call them. If the y-coordinate is negative, instead of going up, you go down. So go ahead and try to figure out what quadrant you would find 1, negative 5, and in what quadrant you would find negative 5, 1. You can plot it on your grid. And now let's see how you did in quadrant. What quadrant would you find over 1, down 5? What quadrant would that be, sir?
4.
Quadrant 4. So over 1, then down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be right here. That ends up in quadrant 4. In what quadrant would you find negative 5, 1? So over to the left 5 and then up 1. Yes, ma'am.
Quadrant 2.
Quadrant 2. Over to the left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 1. You can see your numbers a little bit better than mine, hopefully. Now we're going to practice making polygons on all 4 quadrants in your journal. So let's go.